Hello fellow adventurers, I just wanted to film this quick little video today giving a review of my Lawson Hammock as well as show some of the modifications I've made to the hammock to better suit my sleep system. So this is my Lawson Hammock and the bag that it comes in. So I will set you guys down and do a quick little time lapse of me setting it up before I get into showing you what it looks like. These are the Ralt hammock straps. So Lawson has come out with their own line of hammock straps. However, when I purchased my hammock, they did not have those. So I ordered these off of Amazon and they've worked really great. So this is what the Lawson hammock looks like all set up. So I'll move a little closer and we'll go over things a little bit. So these are the Ralt tree straps, and they're a type of tree strap that is loop based. So there's all these different loops stitched on, and it makes it super easy to adjust the height of your hammock when you're hanging it. So to put it around the tree, you simply loop it through the main loop, and then you have all these different tie-up points to hook your hammock into. So the tree straps came with these carabiners, and I've just stuck those through these blue paracord loops at the end of the Lawson hammock. So the hammock itself comes with these loops. And as you can see, the Lawson hammock is a spreader bar style hammock. So it has this metal bar with all the ropes going to it, and it attaches in the middle, so you can separate it here and it folds in half of its length. But this just helps to create more tension in the hammock to give you a bit of a flatter lay, and it makes the hammock super roomy on the inside. Another feature about this hammock is it has poles that you can put through. So there's little mesh casings, and there's this little elastic that goes right to the top of the ropes and clips on to your poles to help keep them upright. The one thing I have found with these little clips is they don't seem to be super strong, and so I don't like the idea of having to unclip it and clip it back on every time I try to set up my hammock. So what I do when I'm setting up my hammock is I start with my pole on one end, weave it through the mesh, and then I take this little clip and slide it on the end of my pole before I bring it through the rest of the netting. Just makes things a little bit easier. I feel a little safer about not breaking those clips. And then the poles have little loops at the bottom, like your standard tent, to hook through. Now these little loops at the bottom, like a normal tent would have, makes it that the Lawson hammock can actually be set up as a sort of bivvy on the ground. So you can stake it out with these little loops, and then you stake out where you would attach the hammock to the straps here, so you'd stake out this little loop. And then the poles give it its support that you have headroom, and you can use it basically as a small little tent. So the hammock does also come with a rain fly included. So it's this little tarp. It's a rectangular shaped tarp, and it attaches directly to the hammock itself. So no need for an extra ridgeline above it or anything like that. So I've set it up here, and I'll go into it in just a minute. But as you can see, it looks kind of saggy, and you would assume that the rain would start to gather there. However, once you have weight inside the actual hammock and are sleeping in there, it does straighten out a lot more and gets tense so that the rain just kind of wipes right down it. If you do have an issue with it, they also do have little tie-up points at the top that you could lift the hammock a little bit with an extra ridgeline if you wanted to. Now I've been in this hammock many times in rain, and I have never gotten wet through this tarp, so I think it works just great the way it is. The way it attaches is it has these little clips, like so, attached to elastic, that clip onto the little blue loops at the top. And then it also has these little loops down at each corner that just loop over top of your pole. So then it's hooked underneath your pole. And then to go around where the ropes are to get more of a shape there are little clips that just hook on each side to some of those ropes that go to the spreader bar. And that just pulls the tarp tightly around those ropes and gives you kind of a triangular shape at the top. And then in the middle, to keep the tarp down, there are little Velcro pieces that stick to Velcro on the bottom side of the hammock. So this Velcro is the bottom of the hammock, and then the little tarp just reaches right to it. Makes it really easy because, of course, you have to undo these to get into the hammock and then close it back up once you're inside. And so that Velcro just makes that really easy process. So that is the tarp all set up. To show you inside the hammock now, I've just taken off the rain tarp again. And so if we move to go inside, you can see that there is only one door on this hammock, and that is on the one side. So depending when you're doing your hang, you might want to be cautious of where you have the door so that you place on the side that you want to be entering from. So it's double zipper. We open it up. You can see that the door comes completely down. You can just have it kind of hanging there. Gives a really big, wide entry to hop into the hammock. Moving inside the hammock, there are two pockets on the opposite side from the door. So there's a smaller little pocket, just a mesh material pocket, and then a bit bigger of one. So those are great to hold your glasses case, a book, your cell phone, the things you'd have with you in your hammock that you don't want to be sliding around where you're sleeping. Just kind of helps keep them contained. On either end, right by where the pole is, there are these little loops, so you can hang up whatever you want. I've hung string lights across between the two of them to light up my hammock. I've hung a lantern on one at one end of my feet before. Really anything you want to hang up, you can use those for. Another thing that the hammock comes with are these little Velcro tie-up points throughout. Now these metal clips that you can see throughout, I'll be getting those in a second. Those I've actually added to the hammock to help modify it for my sleep pad. But the hammock itself just comes with these little Velcro loops. So a bit of a review of this hammock. I've had this hammock since 2018, so a couple years now, and I've used it on a number of backcountry canoe trips. And in comparison to like some of the other hammocks on the market, like the Hennessy hammock, the Lawson is a little bit bulkier, a little bit heavier, but those other hammocks also don't have the same spreader bar or laying it on the ground as a bivvy options. And that was something that I considered when I was looking into getting myself a hammock. So the Lawson hammock is one of the few that I've come across that have those options, and I personally really like them. If I'm spending that kind of money on a hammock, it's nice that it has that capability to set it up as a tent as well, because who knows, I could go somewhere where I may not have the trees or optimal conditions to set up a hammock, but I can set it up as a tent still. I quite like having the tarp super close to the top of the mesh because it creates like a really roomy feeling. If you're a claustrophobic person at all, maybe this isn't the hammock for you because it does create a bit more enclosed of a space than if you were to have your tarp suspended on a ridgeline above your hammock like most hammock setups are. In terms of the length of the hammock, I'm fairly tall. I'm 5'10", and so I have so much room still above my head and at my feet around me in the hammock, so I don't feel like I'm being squished in the hammock. which is great because some of those banana style hammocks can get a little bit squishy for a tall person. I have also found, as someone who sleeps on my side, that the Lawson hammock is really great for that. I know some of those hammocks that have a little bit more of a banana style can be a little bit more challenging for a side sleeper to sleep in because you end up cocooning yourself more when you sleep on your side. In the Lawson hammock, I can sleep on my side, I can toss and turn, and I still stay completely flat, which is great. So the bug netting is a really nice no-see-um mesh. I've never had bugs make their way through it. I've never had things catch to it and rip. It's a really good quality bug netting. So on some reviews and stuff of the Lawson hammock, I've heard people complaining about it being a little bit tippy. And I can see where it could be, possibly because of the spreader bars. It does kind of flop a little bit more easily. Like you could flip right over, and so those tie-out points where you could stake out the hammock for a bivvy setup, you could also attach rope to those and stake those out on either side to stop the hammock from being able to flip all the way over. I've done that a couple times in severe windstorms, but I have not, I don't do that regularly, and I've never flipped out of my hammock or anything like that. I feel like if you're moving around a ton, it could happen, but I feel like that could happen in any hammock too. A couple of things that I have found with the Lawson hammock that I haven't been as happy with, but still, I still enjoy the hammock regardless of, is because it is a fairly flat lay and because of the spreader bars, when you go to get in it and you have all your sleep pad and stuff sitting in it, they tend to slide out towards the opening. And it's really hard to keep them situated behind you because you're tilting it forward to put yourself into the hammock. But that is why I have made my modifications that I have to hold my sleep pad in place so that that's not as much of an issue. It's also because it's a really nylon-y type material, like a typical hammock, that anything you put on it just slips on it really, really easily. And so I've had things fall out of my hammock when I've gone to get in it before. I was mentioning the hammock, often when I put my sleep pad and sleeping bag and stuff in it, and then I go to get in it, it slides forward and comes out of the hammock a little bit. With such a big opening, I have had things slide a little further than I'd like them to. So to fix that, since the Lawson hammock comes with those Velcro loops already, I wanted to make use of them to try and fasten things down into my hammock. So this is my sleep pad. So it's the Mech Reactor 3.8, and I've used this for a couple years, really like it. But because it has a slippery coating on it, mixed with my hammock, I find it slides around the most in my hammock. So to solve that, I wanted to find a way to attach this specifically to my hammock. And to do that, I decided to use a sleeping bag liner. So this is the Polycotton sleeping bag liner. It's an envelope style rectangular sleeping bag liner from Mountain Warehouse. It was fairly cheap, and so I picked this up as well as some purple nylon webbing, and then those little metal adjusters. So it's the little 3-bar slide adjusters. And I attached a metal adjuster to each of the 10 tie-out points in my hammock. So there's one in this corner by the door, 2 on each end. There's 4, I believe, down this long side. Yep. And then another one on this end, and of course the 2 on that end as well. So what I've done is I have sewn on strips of webbing to the corners or spots along the sleeping bag liner that correspond to my hammock when it is laying in it. So to sew it on, I've just done a little rectangle and a cross to try and reinforce it. And I just used a machine and sewed that through. So as you can see, I've blown up my sleep pad and I've just inserted it into the sleeping bag liner. So So it's just a giant rectangle, you slip it down and then tuck it under the little top part. And then this will just lay over top. And this is also great because it helps, like you could lie directly on top of your sleep mat with this. And it's just like a sheet. You could throw it in the machine and wash it if need be. But all of my webbing that I've sewn onto the edges correspond and line up with the little clips throughout. So I'll attach those to show you what that looks like. So I've just gone around and attached all of my webbing through the slide adjusters. And so they are all completely adjustable to make sure that my pad gets centered in my hammock where I want it, and as well to compensate for weight once it's in the hammock. This is something that is going to add a little bit more to my pack. It's not super heavy, but it is a little bit bulky. However, it's one of those luxury items that I feel like I'm comfortable with taking in my pack just because it helps prevent my pad from sliding. As you can see, if I try to move my pad, it moves my whole hammock, not just the pad. I guess that is my hammock setup so far. If you would like me to do future videos talking a little more about my sleep setup, I can talk about my sleeping bag, sleep pillow. I also have the Lawson underquilt I could talk about. Just let me know in the comments below. But for now, that is my review of the Lawson hammock. Stay tuned for hopefully some more canoe tripping videos coming up soon, now that we're finally allowed back out into the backcountry.